Give it a second. Go.
All right. Welcome to today's presentation. I see people piling in as you're getting in. Tell us where you're from. Tell us where you're located. We got an international crew. We got London, Toronto, and the exotic city of Boston. Yeah, type it in there. I'm Jamie Bradley. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. It's very hot. Cannot even go outside my home. And I work at Ambition, and we are the #1 sales performance management tool, AKA we talk to revenue leaders day in and day out, you guys that are on the line today, about how to navigate and figure out exactly what we are doing, keeping your teams motivated and engaged to hit their goals, which is super crucial right now because guess where we are? All in our houses or all in an isolated WeWork space because Delta is a raging. She's back, baby. And the term hybrid work is really skewing more remote again. But school is in session. Basically, nobody knows what's going on or what's happening. We're all hands on deck trying to figure this stuff out again. But one thing does remain the same. You know, what we're doing, how to do it, what tomorrow is going to bring is something that we've got to focus on so that we can keep people happy, keep them working, keep them productive. And according to Upwork, 87% of people prior to COVID were not remote. So huge shift in the market. Obviously, I think we all know that. But according to Flex Jobs, as we have started to trickle in and open things back up, almost 96% of people that they recently polled said, hey, we either want to stay remote or at least have a flexible work environment. So it's what the people want. Figuring out how to navigate it is something that we got to do. So revenue orgs specifically that can optimize their programs and how they work and how they operate are set up to fail. Win, not fail. They're set up to win. And so I'm going to hand it over. I'm going to stop talking to Chet Lovegren, who is the Director of Sales Development at Pavilion. Hey, Chet.
Hey, everybody. Thank you, Jamie. Director of Sales Development here at Pavilion. For those of you that don't know, Pavilion is a career enablement services platform really focused on helping business professionals get the support and education and assistance they need to achieve their professional goals. Happy to be here and speaking from experience, this whole work from home thing is still kind of new to a lot of people, but we're all figuring it out, and I'd like to think that we all have some great insights to share. So happy to be here.
Yeah, and I said I'm handing it over to Chet. I'm actually just introducing the panel. I got tripped up when I said I was setting you up to fail. Naureen Swanson, who's the Director of Biz Dev at Palo Alto Networks. Welcome, Naureen.
Thanks, Jamie. I'm so excited to be here. I'm hearing a little bit of an echo, so it's kind of odd to chat, but that's cool. I'm Director of Business Development at Palo Alto Networks. If you guys don't know what Palo Alto Networks, this is so weird.
I know. I'm like, can I help you?
Do you feel that too?
No, we're not getting an echo, but maybe unplug and plug in your headphones again.
I'm passing the mic to Kelly.
Pass the mic to Kelly, and we will we'll figure this out. So
we'll keep Naureen rolling this through.
Now I'm. There we go. We got. Let me see what I can do here. But Kelly, vamp, walk us through. What do you do?
What an auspicious start for all of us. So great to be here. Thanks everyone for joining. My name is Kelly. I lead customer success and solutions at Ambition. So Jamie and I are colleagues and really happy to be here. My team, we have this conversation with revenue leaders just about every day now on how we're adapting to the hybrid work environment, how we can use technology and best practices for keeping teams engaged and motivated. So I'm thrilled to be here, and I learned things from our dress rehearsal, so I'm sure I will learn more today from Chet and Naureen. So thanks for having us.
Wonderful. Well, and luckily Chet works at Pavilion, our awesome host, and Pavilion, maybe he can slack our buddy Chris and see if Chris can
we try take two. Oh no, still not working.
Still happening. Well, I will.
Hey, it's Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Naureen. I believe it's because your mics are both on your headphone set and on your computer turned on, so one needs to be turned off. So if you could turn off one on there, that'd be awesome.
Love it. Guys, we couldn't have planned this better because these are the challenges that one faces when working remotely in a hybrid environment. I am shocked that that wasn't me and that it was Naureen that happened to. But Chet, I will actually start with you then. So you are leading a team. Unlike Naureen, who we'll get to in a second, you have always been doing this remotely. So you kind of don't. You're sort of this anomaly where you don't have things that you need to unlearn, and you're building a team from scratch. So you also don't really have a team that, you were sitting with them in a room. So that you've kind of got this unique kind of great perspective that's super fresh, which I absolutely love. I'd call it almost a superpower. So, as you are building this team, as you're starting to hire and really look at that remote first dream team, we have to start there. What are those qualities that you are looking for, and have they changed from a previous life that you had? Do you think that the person you're hiring today is different than the person you would have hired in the past?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think the answer is ultimately yes. Everybody needs a custom onboarding approach, right? Some people are really good self-starters and self-learners. Some people need a little bit more hand-holding, and that's okay, right? Early on in my career as an individual contributor, I was more of a hand-holder. Like, hey, can you kind of guide me? Like, I need to know the process and everything. I need to know everything within the box before I start like expanding outside of the box, right? And that's okay, right? I ended up learning a little bit more about how to be a self-learner later on, but the biggest thing I scope for is how proactive are you? Especially when you're remote onboarding, you really don't want to get into what I call like death by PowerPoint, right? Or death by Zoom meeting where it's just video training after video training and the person's just sitting there. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah. But finding ways to have people be proactive and figuring out, hey, what do I need to do? Like, I have white space on my calendar. I know the goal for this week is to learn the company, our partners, and the problem that we solve before we jump into product and process and prospecting, right? And speaking strictly from like sales dev, what do I do with this extra white space here? Would you recommend some team members that I should sit on calls with, even if this is like new to me? And just making sure that even though I'm working from home, I have 3 to 5 p.m. open. Just because I didn't get something scheduled there doesn't mean I'm hands off. The worst thing you can do is get into a position where you're approaching what you have to do day one, core abilities, and then you're like, oh, but I still got to set up my calendar link and my signature in HubSpot or whatever CRM you're using with email integration. That's the last place you want to be. And unfortunately, it happens, but we look for that proactive approach and people that have a proactive mindset that have the ability to self-learn, but also will be proactive if they need a little extra handholding to go, hey, look, like, I'm okay being vulnerable, just saying like, I need help here. Like, what should I be doing at this time?
I love it. And I love the word vulnerable too, because it's not just proactive. It's like, hey, if you don't know how to do something, just please don't pretend like you do. I feel like that has become, I've become way more candid about what I don't know, like how to fix Maureen's microphone.
It's fixed. I think we're good. We're good.
Guys, celebrate wins. We'll get to that later in the call, but I think that's so great. And so Naureen, you're back. So you, unlike Chet, you did this role in person, IRL, and now you're remote. And so you kind of do have that, that perspective of here's what I had to take from what I knew and translate it over. So my question for you is the same thing. So actually I'll go back. So you are over 50 people in your role. There are 4 BDR managers sort of under you. So you're sort of also managing managers. You are representing a much larger org actually than the rest of us on this call. And so that's a challenge in of itself. Also, you're at home dealing with all the pitfalls that come with that. But you've hired and onboarded 13 reps in the past quarter, which is absurd. That's a lot of people. Wow. So what are you hiring for? Is it different? I'm sure proactivity is great. I'm sure, all of that is good. But what are those qualities that you're looking for? And are they different now than they were in the past when you were hiring, in person and you could shake their hand and meet them?
Yeah, very similar to Chet. But pre-COVID, I looked for 3 things, and it was always these 3 consistent things. It was resilience, because BDRs in the BDR world are told no 90% of the time. So you need to be able to pick yourself up move on to the next call and not let that affect you. The second is really coachability. We love to give feedback here at Palo Alto Networks, and we're always trying to make each other better. And the last one is curiosity. But I realized during COVID, I had to take that curiosity to the next level. And I really focused on fearless curiosity. And I wanted to hire people that could get in the trenches, that were not afraid to ask the hard questions, that were not afraid to dig deep and learn on their own, self-motivators, self-starters. So those are things that I had to shift on quite a bit, but I was able to interview for those, and then in the end hire 13 really amazing BDRs and do all that via remote from my basement.
And actually, is that wine behind you? That's
wine. Yep.
Oh yeah, that's a great setup there. Yeah, you need it when you're hiring 13 new people. Love that. So Kelly, shifting to you. So Kelly is, like she mentioned, so they're in sales. Kelly is representing the CS side of the house, and screening for new hires, hiring new in. You get to sort of pick and choose the qualities that you have. You kind of had an opposite experience where you had a team and we hired you remotely and you came in and onboarded yourself remotely, inherited a team. And so you kind of had the opposite thing where you had to figure out, get to know a team of people that were already here, identify their strengths, identify sort of their hopes and dreams. And I will say of all the leaders at Ambition, you have the distinction of your team has made a lot of little fun shifts. It's incredibly exciting to watch. I think last week there was this long scrolling message of all the
promotions
and movement. And that is in and of itself something that I think is extraordinary to be able to do in this time period, the fact that people are growing and moving and shifting and changing. So tell me about that experience. How was it like to onboard yourself remotely, get to know these people, and then also help them grow?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it is a weird experience to walk into a fully formed team and never having met these people in person or sat next to them on a QBR or a call. So I think it was a combination of looking at data from before I was there to say, what does goal achievement look like? Where are we really consistent as a team or as individuals? And then where can I coach them up on, certain behaviors or elements of their job? I did lots of different talent assessments, self-assessments, things like SWOT analyses, had the team put those together for me. And I really used a lot of coaching programs to start to understand, okay, what's the playing field? Like where are the consistencies, and then where are things that are just, we have someone who's really strong and someone who might not be. So over the course of the past 11 months or so, I think that's helped me understand who are those individual contributors ready for the next move. And as we grow and create new roles, whether in leadership or senior roles, it's been really great to see who can translate what they're doing into a playbook of success for their peers or for people that they will now be managing. So I think like a combination of data and then coaching to really see where we are and where we could dive in more on the skill building.
Yeah, absolutely. And Naureen, now that you're back, I'm hitting you up left and right. When we talk about hiring, we talk about the qualities people need, and we talk about the methods. I love touching on the fact that it isn't just a gut feeling. You can look at data. If you have it, you must use that to determine things. But Naureen, I know for you, and we talked about this earlier this week, that you can create modules and you can walk people through methodology, and you could do death by PowerPoint if you want or not, or whatever it takes to make sure that they have the skills and they know the lay of the land. But once you get these people on board, I know you have developed a whole program essentially to walk them through the new onboarding, but there's also some sort of just cultural alignment that has to happen. So can you tell me a little bit more about how do you do that? How are you creating, sort of telling the story of what they can expect from this role to continue that onboarding?
Yeah, I think I haven't seen this before in my career until COVID hit. A lot of anxiety of some of the new hires. And it's a normal feeling because they're starting a role from a room in their house, as opposed to being welcomed by the company and getting, swag and all of this stuff. So we had to find a way to incorporate that family-like environment in a way that made them feel comfortable. And for me, it was over rotating on the communication. So really showing them the first 30 days, here's what it's going to look like, written out. So they felt comfortable that, yeah, as a company, we have your back. We know this is what you're going to do. We're going to be supporting you every day throughout your training program for the next 30 days. We also implemented a buddy program. And we had a loose program before, but we really put this into writing, and we hold our employees to this program. And then we also implemented a global mentorship program. So not only did I want these new employees to find a buddy that's a peer, but I also wanted them to reach outside their comfort zone and meet somebody else in the company who had been here for a while, pre-COVID and post-COVID, and is someone that could be a mentor for them throughout their career. Mentorship has been huge in my life. So I wanted to instill that right off the beginning from day one of the new hires onboarding program. And then lastly, 15-minute huddles, virtual huddles. And it was more focusing on high EQ topics rather than work. So I wanted to create a safe environment for everybody every day to join. And a couple of times I had to cancel these 15-minute huddles, and they were upset. They wanted to still meet. They're like, we're still going to meet even though you can't come. I'm like, great, because that was their one time out of the entire day that they could all get together and chit chat. So for me, those were very, very important.
I love that. Chet, you were like emphatically nodding. Are you guys doing something similar? Do you have buddies and that sort of thing?
Yeah, we have a buddy program. They make sure to sync at least once a week, and then every 2 weeks try to do like a 30-minute virtual lunch just to be a safe space to answer questions and just talk about what's going on, right? Things they may not be comfortable sharing with me or sharing with their cohorts. We probably don't onboard as many people at one time as Naureen does. We onboard more like 2, maybe 3. So it's a little more limited in terms of like what the cohort group looks like and how extensive that is. But that is, I think, totally on what she said about hitting on the expectations and providing a clear-cut path and plan for what the onboarding is like. I love it. That's why I'm just, yes, 100%, yes. It's a total evangelist for that, right?
Well, I think if we talk about sort of top behaviors of what is going to make someone thrive too, I mean, also looking at who exists in your current org that also goes out of their way to make sure these new people feel secure and safe and like have what they need. Because I think that the people that have been there before too can get overlooked, I think, in this environment too. So I think that's I think I just made a great point. I don't know.
And I think
the transition. Yeah.
I think, Chet, just to add to what you said, whether it's 3 employees starting on the same day or 10 employees starting on the same day, the fact that there's 3 people starting on the same day together, right? That is so important. I used to hire one-off people all the time because we're all in the office and it was easier. But when you're starting virtually, having them start as a cohort, regardless of the number, is so impactful to those people. They really become this like group and they stay together through the life of their career in that role. Absolutely.
Well, and Kelly, I want to highlight something that we also talked about. So when we talk about onboarding, obviously we're talking about the emotional side of it, just the community side of it, but going back a little bit to the programs, I like how you've built out your modules and your certification. So can you just sort of walk us through that? Because that was something that we had not previously had.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think as we've talked about death by PowerPoint, it's very easy to do that, where I started creating an onboarding deck. And as I got to slide 95, I was like, well, I don't know if this is going to be the most exciting thing for this new hire. So what I started doing a few months ago was an actual certification program where instead of just saying, you're going to learn this element of our product, or you will learn how to demo or deliver a QBR. Let's actually kind of gamify this a little bit. We'll build a certification process around this. There's peer coaching, there's an actual rubric for all of the things you need to hit. And when you're ready or at a certain time frame, you'll have your certification and you'll earn a digital badge for that. And you can kind of display them as your little trophy case of all of the certifications you've earned. And you kind of work your way through, and you always know what is coming next, what's the next thing to go learn and do and wow people with. And it's engaged our executives. Like one of our co-founders sits in on the demo certification, and he loves it. He loves to hear how our new employees are talking about the value of ambition. So it's great FaceTime for those new hires. And it's something that, one of our most senior level leaders gets to do as well. So it's a really fun opportunity to bring in other people into the process and have something as simple as like a digital badge that actually does get 35-year-olds pretty excited to go out and earn something. So it's fun.
I didn't get a badge.
Yeah, it's great.
We'll talk later. So, I think all of this is great. So we're hiring these people, we're onboarding them. But if anyone has looked at a newspaper or a digital newspaper, a website lately, we're all seeing those stats about it's the great resignation. Everyone is leaving their jobs. And I actually found a stat. PwC found that 65% of employees are looking for a new job right now, that's including both the sectors we work in and just the entire workforce. But it is staggering. It's definitely a candidate's market. And I think that among everything else has made this even more challenging for anyone leading any type of team. But Chet, when we talked about this earlier this week, I said, how do you keep people engaged? And your first words were TikTok. And I was like, I'm listening. So I am very old. I feel like I don't get TikTok, but the kids do. So walk me through how you are leveraging this. And does it involve the milk crate challenge, which I found out about yesterday? It's probably months old, but.
No, it does not involve the milk crate challenge. That's incredibly dangerous, but it would be
I'm
interesting.
I'm like the ERs are full. Can we not walk on milk crates right now?
Yeah. No, and I'm kind of the same thing. Like I'm in that range where like my daughter's really into TikTok, and I'm like, I see some of the stuff where it pertains to kids, but then I do see like a lot of other stuff where, people in their early, mid, some even late 20s are very engaged in TikTok.
Yeah.
And it's just a very, very simple recreational activity. And so one of the things we were doing at our last company, I haven't implemented it here yet because I don't want people to think I'm too weird at my current company yet. But I would always say like, hey, in one-on-one, like ping me a link to your favorite TikTok of the week. And the person that has the best TikTok that they send me in their one-on-one gets a $10 Amazon card, like the one that makes me laugh the hardest. And so it actually was funny because I wasn't using TikTok myself, but my wife actually came up with the idea. And so I started doing it. And then because I had to set up a TikTok to see these TikToks, I actually got really involved in TikTok myself. So it was kind of like a good thing, but a bad thing for me because now I know why people use TikTok. Yeah. And, but it was a great way just to kind of like, especially with one-on-ones and sometimes the connotation of what's happening in a one-on-one where it's focused on accountability. It's like a good way to kind of break that up a little bit, but also just stir some fun in the group.
Yeah. Well, I love it too, because it's completely subjective and it doesn't mean that you're the best rep, or you could be having a terrible week and have the best TikTok. And so I love that it is this equalizer, and kind of makes them competitive in a really silly way, which is fun. And Naureen, same question to you. Have you done anything kind of fun to promote? I mean, I know you seem like you're doing so many smart sort of EQ, emotionally intelligent things with your team. So what do you do to kind of just keep them?
I'm definitely not as cool as Chet. I'm old and boring. So my brother sent me a TikTok and I'm like, what do I do with this? I don't know what this is.
Do I like it? I don't know.
Yeah. So I definitely, if I look to recognition, our manager to employee and peer-to-peer recognition has increased tenfold. So we're putting together a ton of like Bonusly is something we use, really, really great company for recognition. And we do it company-wide. And we also weekly do wheel spins. Has anyone done that on this call?
No.
I've only done it in real life. Not
There's these virtual wheel spins. And on the prizes, you can put, you get the next Friday off or, Amazon gift cards, whatever prizes you want. And then there's a wild card where they can choose anything they want. It's very, very, prices. I see prices. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so we do stuff like that. And it's not necessarily for most meetings for the month. It's just sometimes we'll change it up so that those who are having a down week can feel like a little bit of an up and a push and some motivation to go into the next week. So we'll change up the prizes like that.
Yeah. Well, and I will say too, I mean, I think just the frequency piece is really interesting to me, where it's like the emphasis on making sure that everyone is feeling engaged and recognized has become vital versus just a like, maybe once a quarter we'll throw a pizza party or something. It's become this like strategy that you guys have to implement, which I love. Speaking of strategies, so Kelly, we talked obviously about the internal, motivation, recognition. But tell me about the Top 100 campaign. I'm just going to throw you out there.
Sure.
Because I think this is a really funny, not like haha funny, but a really interesting way to think about making sure that everyone in the ecosystem gets seen or is seen and feels pulled into the culture that you're creating at your orgs.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think internal employee recognition, I completely agree with everything Chet and Naureen are saying. And being on the customer side of the revenue house, like we're always thinking about how we can engage our customers as well. And we do things like direct mail and webinars, and those are fantastic. And they typically touch high level executives, right? So that buyer at our prospect or our customer, or, that person who's owning the product. So we get a lot of interaction with them. What we wanted to do was figure out a way to recognize the actual like power users of our product. So typically like sales managers or team leads or people who are not the CRO who's signing the check, but it's someone who is really important to, the ambition relationship they have. So we did a campaign for our top 100 power users, and our CSMs actually wrote a LinkedIn post highlighting those people and calling out that they were, and these were individual posts for each person calling out that they were this great user of the sales performance management accountability software. If we knew their manager, we tagged their manager in as well. And so it's something that wasn't a budget line item for us. It was, it took some time. Everyone did it, on a Thursday morning, and we created a digital badge, an accolade in our product, and awarded it to them and gave them this big shout out. And it went over so well, because if you think about that team lead, like, are they often getting very public kudos that everyone at their company could see, and maybe not. And so that was something from a customer success standpoint that was super easy, first of all, and also really successful in getting more engagement. The CSMs felt great about getting to do this for customers. And so we try to think of those ways too, where that public pat on the back could be more valuable than another coffee mug. Although
I mean, I love a coffee mug. Yeah, but I love praise even more. No, and I love that. And it's so true. Like, when was the last time somebody was like, hey, you recognize people really well. You're doing a really good job keeping your team motivated. And yeah, I love that. So, we're not just creating this great culture of recognition though, because it gives us warm fuzzies. It does give us warm fuzzies, but the means to the end is that we want to create some intentional process around keeping people engaged and excited and motivated and productive. Happy, engaged employees are going to hit their goals, and they're going to just understand and be easier to reach, especially in this environment. So Chet, bringing it back to you again, you said a word earlier that is, I think, vital to the recognition component. The other side of that coin is the accountability component. So you can't just give praise. You've got to make sure that they are, actually someone's paying attention to what they're doing, especially now that people are working, from their bed or from a closet or wherever they may be. So tell me more kind of just about that environment, how you're creating that, and just specific processes that you yourself have implemented now or in the recent past to hold people accountable.
Yeah, I think especially in sales development, where I think we can all agree, and Naureen could probably speak to this too. A lot of the people that we're responsible for, they want to be AEs someday, or maybe they
Yeah.
want to be like enterprise CSMs, right? A big part of that job to be successful is the ability to conduct one-on-ones, almost like a pipeline management session, right? Where there's deal strategy and you're looking at things like pacing and performance to goal, but more in depth than just, oh, you have to book 15 meetings, you're 8 to 15, and there's 50% of the month left. Looks like we're going to get there. Like really drilling down on all the key data points. So I'm pretty heavily focused on like our one-on-one document that we use, really utilizing that as a way to not only show what we've done week by week, but where we're pacing week by week and where we filled in the gaps. So if on the beginning of August, you're, in our second one-on-one, halfway through the month, you're tracking to 85% of your goal, and we put a SMART goal in place, and I can see the difference that week made, and now you're pacing to actually overachieve your goal by 20%, then it kind of shows that we're following through those action items. Because especially when you're outbound prospecting, resequencing prospects that you haven't talked to in more than 3 months, hitting more call metrics, focusing on quality conversations. Those are things that are easier said than done because they just kind of fall by the wayside, especially depending on how well your reps' time management principles are. So I really try to focus in my SMART goals on my one-on-one doc to have a professional goal that has to do with their job at Pavilion. An admin goal that has to do with the data and the pipeline management, stuff like that. Like maybe you need to resequence this many people because you have this giant open pipeline of people we haven't talked to in three or more months. And then kind of a career goal to make sure that I also know I'm focused on them. So it's, hey, this is for you. This is not pertaining to Pavilion, your job here. This is your goal. Like, what do you want to do? Is it a webinar you watched? Is it one of the Pavilion schools you're involved in right now in a course that you took? Like, what is this? That part is about you. And I have them fill that goal out so they remember that, yeah, I'm focused on your performance here and what you're able to do here. But I also want you to be better on the way out when you leave than when you came the door, whether that's a promotion here or you go get that AE job you wanted at another company. My commitment is to you. And if I'm committed to you as an individual, that's going to translate to job performance for Pavilion.
Actually, I'm going off script. Anybody else? How are you sort of tracking one-on-ones and setting those goals? Is it similar to what Chet is doing, or
it's almost identical, Chet? Like you took the words out of my mouth. I feel like we're definitely on the same wavelength. It's really about how we can make them better today for their tomorrow. Like I really, especially for early in career BDRs, it's helping coach them not on, you need to get 100 meetings this week or make 100 dials and do this and that. It's really about, hey, how can I get you to do a better sales call? How can I teach you how to forecast? Because you're probably going to need that in the next step. So part of the one-on-ones are, all right, are you reaching your goals? If not, let's get you there. And then as far as development goes, what is your next step? Where do you want to go next? And how can I help you get there? They need to know that they can rely on their leadership team to help them get to that next goal. Not only did I hire 13 people, but I hired 13 people because we promoted 13 people. So it's just building that cycle of you're here to do your job and learn so that I can help you get to that next level and building that trust with the employee. Like the employee manager trust, it sounds like Chet has a really strong relationship with his BDRs or SDRs. And, I try to build the exact same thing as he was talking about. So echo everything you said, Chet.
I love that trust element too. Like it being on the, customer CS side of the house, my metrics for a team member's success aren't necessarily all activity driven. Like if they have a day where they're just dealing with one big escalation or they're working on building a great QBR deck, maybe they don't have as much activity and that's fine with me. But from the accountability standpoint, I love getting to a place with a team where you can have something like, we call it game film review, where we'll actually take a CSM's call using, our call intelligence software, and we'll watch it as a team and talk about, give feedback, hear how someone handled an objection, or if it was a great call one wonderful, but we like to watch the bad calls too, of like what went wrong here. And having that peer-to-peer trust to be able to see each other through those moments, or say, that's really interesting, maybe next time I would try it this way, and give each other that feedback and kind of get ideas as to how they could incorporate someone else's talk track into what they're doing. I think that's an interesting part of accountability too, that's not just a metric, but it is something about being vulnerable, as we've talked about, or kind of being willing to go and do this type of stuff.
Well, and that's neat too, like the reviewing each other's calls, which I know that's not a totally new concept, but I do think it's even more vital, I would imagine, while remote, because creating space where everyone is together. And I think, Chet, you guys do this as well. And you were saying, again, going off script, but you were saying that there's a really interesting sort of dynamic at play where when you do elevate someone who has that like badass call that was really, really good, it sort of just creates this competition, unofficial, like, you know, off the record competition where everyone's like, well, I want to be the really, really good one next week. I mean, that would be the number one thing that motivated me, is hearing my own voice and everyone saying that it was great for 30 minutes. So I love the idea of it's vulnerability, but it's also kind of creating some spice, you know, in between them. So, you know, when we talk about how we have had to become more intentional as leaders and how, you know, we're building, you know, all of this time, our one-on-ones have become even more vital. They're no longer the flyby, you know, hey, I heard you, you're fine, kind of relationship. Your calendar is crazy. I know, Kelly, to try to find 30 minutes for her to come to a webinar is nearly impossible. So our scheduling, no, blame Kelly. But your schedules are crazy. And so Naureen, you know, you touched on this when we met previously, you know, that is a challenge. You know, you don't have as much time in the day to get done what you need to get done because you're having to prioritize time with the reps. So how have you solved for it? How do we do it? What does it take? Tell me.
You know, I'm still working on that. It is a work in progress. My calendar does give me heartburn. So, but I worked with an admin. My boss lent me his admin, and she really taught me a thing or two that I didn't realize about calendars and scheduling. You have to block out, as a leader, block out time for yourself. Actually, as anybody, you have to. I block out 30 minutes in the morning, I block out 30 minutes at lunch, and I block out 30 minutes in the afternoon. And it is in yellow, beautiful, bright, sunny color. So I know I can glance at my calendar, block, like I can see that. I put my one-on-ones in a different color. Not everybody does that. She looked at my calendar. She's like, it's a sea of blue. How do you work like this? I'm like, I don't know. It's just, I live by my calendar, but I don't do that anymore. I live by me. And I kind of go by my calendar because I have to, but I do have these breaks that I set in every single day, and people respect it. And I actually eat lunch. My husband's upstairs working, and we'll like have lunch together. These are important things because at the end of the day, if you wait to get something done tomorrow, it's not the end of the world. It is okay. Yeah. And then the second piece is, I am making more time than I ever did to spend with the reps. I'm a second level manager, but I sit with about 5 to 10 BDRs a day, and I will give them 30 minutes of my time just to talk. All that I ask is that you come with 3 questions so that it kickstarts our conversation, but I will be here as a mentor and a coach, open door policy all the way. So that is something that, you know, I hadn't really done before because I was kind of always around in the office. But now I make it a point to say, book time with me. I will give you my undivided attention for 30 minutes, and we can talk about whatever it is you want to talk about.
I love that. Anybody else? Kelly, are you good at eating your lunch?
No, I feel really empowered to go color coordinate my calendar, though. So
it's
thank
amazing.
you. I'm going to do that.
You just ruined my ability to get Kelly to do stuff.
I love that. I think, you know, I, like Jamie said, and like Naureen's talking about, very booked calendar, but I think I try to be very cognizant of the human first element of the situation we are all in. So like every one-on-one starts with, and we use like a little slider bar, but it's like, how's life outside of work this week? Like, give me the pulse check, because, and I will add in for my reps what's going on with me, with like my kids just started preschool and like the drop-off line is chaos. Everyone knows what that's like, right? So we'll go back and forth for 5 minutes just about what's going on, how are you feeling, like any new challenges, what's your roommate up to. Like everyone's just in this weird world where you don't get to do that when you walk into the office and you see someone grabbing coffee. So I think making that an actual agenda item of those meetings or those check-ins kind of helps remind you that you actually need to do it. Can't just jump into work every time.
Totally. And Naureen, actually, I remember you were saying you reached out, you did some stuff that you haven't done before. Like you actually sought some outside help that you probably would never have done or prioritized. You'd be like, no, I have to do it all myself, you know?
Yeah, that was hard for me. I realized through this pandemic that I can't do everything myself. And, you know, probably in the same boat as Kelly, I have 2 small kids and they were at home for a big portion of last year while I was working and, you know, trying to keep the household running. So I actually brought in some reinforcements, some expert reinforcements to help my team, to help coach and train my team and get them to be the best reps that they can be. So I did bring in Jim Keenan, who's the author of Gap Selling, to help mentor us on, you know, really identifying the customer's problem. And then to reinforce that and help with the writing and the content, I brought in Beck Hollins from Flip the Script, which helped us reinforce all of what Keenan had just taught us and put it into process. So with those 2 people, we built a super strong team and the reps just felt empowered. You know, they learned something other than BANT, which was developed in like 1967, by the way.
I've got a little BANT shade going on.
I know it's shade. Anyways, so it was something that I learned myself. I can't do it all. We can't do it all, and it's okay to ask for help and dish out some money to pay for some really great help that in turn will make the team extremely, extremely successful and confident.
Yes. And I actually just dropped a link in. I just believe in what Beck and Keenan do. They're going on tour. So
not sponsored.
Yeah, it's not sponsored. Yeah, exactly. maybe we can get a kickback now. But no, they're super smart. And I think that that's such a great, again, it goes back to that theme of vulnerability. It is hard to say, hey, someone else out there may be able to coach my reps as good as me or better than me or whatever. So raising your hand and having people come in and say that also just reinforces that you're investing in that team and that you're willing to actually find an expert, find somebody else that they don't talk to every day that they can learn from and brings a fresh perspective. So I love it. So final thought, again, if you have questions, let us know, type it in the chat, ask a question. But final thoughts, I love to do this. Like, what's one piece of advice, and this will each of you, Chet, we'll start with you again, to a new revenue leader, at your org to sort of help them get set up for success. What's one piece of advice that you would have given yourself at the beginning of all this mess, based on what you've learned, that you would impart with them? So if somebody's starting, another you is starting, what's the one thing that you're like, you got to do that? Maybe it's make time. Maybe it's go get some cookies. I don't know. What would it be?
I'm always a fan of getting cookies.
Same. That's why I'm starving.
It's part of the reason I wrote a blog post about how much weight I had to lose because I love cookies too much.
Oh, don't even get me started on that. I'm glad this is from here up.
I think patience and flexibility is important. I have this concept of pretty much any time you're working anywhere, regardless if you're, Series A or Series D, you're kind of always flying a plane and building it at the same time. You can't really land the plane and stop everything to fix whatever needs to be fixed. And actually our VP of Member Success said something the other day on a call that really resonated with me. A little bit of good is a lot better than no perfect. And so being,
I want that on a dish towel.
Shout out Leslie Greenwood, right? Yeah, I want like one of those things that you get a Hobby Lobby.
Live, laugh, love, a little bit. Yeah, that's great.
But it's not to say like we don't want things to be done right, but if we try to make everything perfect all the time, we're not going to get anywhere. And so, do your project planning, put the red tape up for process and things like that, but also recognize that sometimes trying to go for perfect is going to wreck things. And so patience is good, but you also need to be a little flexible and maybe put some urgency behind matters that require more immediate attention.
I love that. Naureen.
I really had to tap into my EQ during these past 18 months and juggle a lot of things. And I know that everybody that works for me also is doing the same thing. So I will also reference a quote. And I posted this on LinkedIn not too long ago. It's a Maya Angelou quote. People won't remember what you did or what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And this is something for me that I've been really conscious of over these past 18 months, to just really try to bring the energy over Zoom as much as I can, and to be in touch with my employees' EQ, to always understand that work doesn't come first. Family, home comes first, and work comes second, and being open to that and being, receptive of things that are going on in folks' home life. And that is new for us. I feel we always say it, but really, my kids have made multiple guest appearances on Zoom calls, and it happens all the time. And people have to be okay with that, because that was the reality. And so,
absolutely,
I'll leave you with that.
I love that. All right, Kelly.
Okay, boy, how do I follow that? I completely agree. I think for me, if I was starting this job over again, I probably wouldn't wait as long to have my team be teaching each other the things they do great. Like, I think you really quickly understand, wow, that person is amazing at whatever it is, opening a call, setting the purpose and agenda, or this person has amazing follow-up emails, or this person does not get ruffled. But what I would do faster is say, tell me more about that. Like, how are you doing this? Teach the team. Let's talk about it. Let's actually put it into action. Like, those things that you're amazing at, I want to recognize you for it, but I also want everyone else to learn from you. It doesn't need to filter through me or through enablement. We don't have to wait for that quarterly review or that training, but really push the peer-led best practices, because it also makes them feel really engaged and motivated to be seen as that leader on the team, or someone that's really strong at some element of our process or our life cycle. So that's something I would always recommend, is if someone's great at something, have them teach the rest of your team how to do it.
Guys, those were great pieces of advice there. So it seems like the themes for today were: don't be afraid to be vulnerable. You got to write everything down. You need to have a measurable sort of, record of what you're doing, where you're going, what you're asking them to do to hold them accountable. Don't be afraid to not have all the answers, and let peers lead each other. And then also just be a human being, and be flexible with yourself, but also your time. I love that, guys. We'll get through this. We'll hire and empower the leaders of tomorrow. So thank you so much for your time today. And thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was great.